The Tuareg legend that the trees were moved is consistent with this. The pattern of the trunks across the desert, lying parallel, in regular spacing, is consistent with this. The depression where the largest specimen was found, the ancient lake bed, is consistent with the idea that the trees were transported by water before being abandoned. If you find this hard to swallow, you are not alone. There is no civilization in the official record that had the capacity to harvest, transport, and arrange trees of 40-meter diameter. The whole proposition requires accepting that everything we have been taught about pre-Roman engineering capacity is wrong by orders of magnitude. But that is exactly what the Tartaria framework proposes. Marchand's expedition continued for another 3 months after the initial discovery. They documented additional sites. They mapped the distribution of the trunks across an area Marchand estimated at roughly 30,000 square kilometers. They noted that the larger specimens were always found in association with what looked like artificial earthworks, mounds, channels, geometric depressions in the desert floor that did not match any natural erosion pattern. 2 of his expedition members died during the return journey. The cause of death was officially listed as exposure and exhaustion. Renard, in a private 1908 letter, discovered in a French provincial archive in 1979, wrote that he believed they had been poisoned. Vasseur, the photographer, returned to France and within 8 months was committed to a sanitarium in Marseille. He died there in 1911. His family destroyed his personal papers after his death, on the instructions of an authority Renard's letter does not name. Marchand himself lived until 1934. He never spoke publicly about the expedition again. In private correspondence, he expressed regret that the report had been suppressed and conviction that what they had found was genuine. In a letter dated 1919, he wrote that he had been warned by parties he would not name in writing that revisiting the topic would have consequences for his family. The site itself has been reportedly visited by at least 3 subsequent expeditions in 1932, 1958, and 1987. The 1987 expedition, led by an independent French geologist named Lucien Petit, claimed to have located what may have been one of the smaller petrified trunks. Petit took photographs. He filed a preliminary report. Within a year, he was dismissed from his university position. The photographs were taken from his home during a burglary in 1989. He died in 1994. The official cause was a heart attack. He was 51 years old and had no history of cardiac problems. The honest answer is that we do not know for certain. The primary evidence is too fragmented, too damaged, too contested. What we have are the surviving fragments of Marchand's report, the testimony of Renard, 2 reproduced photographs, and a pattern of suppression that, even if it does not prove the underlying claim, is itself worth investigating. If Marchand's trees exist, they tell us one of 3 things. They tell us that there is a previously unknown species of giant tree that grew in the Sahara and left no other fossil record. They tell us that the trees were transported there from somewhere else. Or they tell us that the entire timeline is wrong, and there were forests in the Sahara, with trees of dimensions that exceed anything in the modern botanical record, in a period of geological time that is not currently recognized. Each of these possibilities is devastating to the mainstream narrative. The first requires us to accept significant gaps in our paleobotanical record. The second requires a civilization with the engineering capacity to move trees weighing hundreds of thousands of tons. The third requires us to accept that the geological history of the planet includes periods that current science does not acknowledge. This is why the report was suppressed, not because the trees did not exist, because they did, and because their existence raised questions that the institutional structures of early 20th century science were not prepared to answer. For more than a century, that strategy has worked, but the question remains. And the trees, if they existed, are still there, buried under the sand, waiting for someone with the resources and the political access to dig them up. Were we the first? Or did someone else come before us, build something we do not understand, leave behind evidence we are not equipped to interpret, and then disappear from the record so completely that even their existence is now disputed? The Sahara might know. The 1903 survey almost told us. Until then, we have Marchand's notes, Renard's letter, 2 surviving photographs, and a 42-metre petrified tree trunk lying somewhere in the southern Algerian desert, half buried in sand, waiting for the next person willing to look. If you want to dig deeper into the lost histories the textbooks refuse to acknowledge, we have a full playlist of investigations into Tartaria, suppressed archaeology, and the civilizations that mainstream science has tried to erase. Watch the next video right now. The evidence is on the screen.